So this was just sketching in the field.
Lovely.
Some of the fruiting stuff that I was recording in Papua New Guinea, just recording. Basically, a lot of the Papua New Guinea guys were bringing in stuff for me. And once again, just getting Croco Belong Kapur, which was food tree of the Matches tree kangaroo. So when you find out something's feeds on something, that's when it's really great, because you can then put the animal feeding on that.
Who's your heroes?
Okay.
Or should I say hero?
One big one.
One big one?
And only because he lived locally, and he was the person that suggested I go into colour, and that was William T. Cooper.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the late William T. Cooper. But he was known worldwide as one of the world's best bird artists, working with people like David Attenborough. I was very fortunate that I lived locally. I was very fortunate that I was able to show him my work, and that's when he suggested that I did pencil for over 20 years before I picked up any sort of colour paintbrush or anything like that. And he said to me, if you want to really go ahead with what you're doing, you need to move into colour. And I started doing that. And then he agreed every so often, because he was a very, very busy man, every so often to come up to his studio, and we'd sit around like we are now, and I'd get some tips from him. He'd show me stuff in his paintings, and then 2 or 3 months later, I'd paint frantically in those 2 or 3 months later. I'd come back and ask for his critique on the work that I was doing. And so you can imagine having a gentleman like that of his calibre. It was quite daunting, but I found that he taught me so much more than just being an artist. Just what to do when you get out into nature, the way you approach all your reference work, all these fine things that I admired about him, but it was things that I found out about him more that made up his finished paintings like we've seen today. Another couple of influences, I suppose, is Robert Bateman. Robert Bateman is sort of the flagship wildlife artist for Canada. I think the reason why I love his work is that he gets away from the intricate detail that I see in Bill's stuff, but he really nails the anatomy of the animal, and also instead of painting just the animal, he'll paint a scene with the animal in it. And like we said before, it's nice to give that bit more of a story. And yeah, they're probably two of the biggest influences that I've had. And back in my pencil days, I was doing every single hair on the animal. And an originally Belgian wildlife artist, Carl Brenders, he was one of the first wildlife artists that I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. But I've now realised, as I'm doing oils more than anything, I'm actually enjoying getting the look of things like fur and feathers without actually painting every little piece of fur and one feather. Yeah. So yeah, they were definitely the influences, I can say offhand.
So when you met Bill Cooper, did you just knock on his door, phone him up? How do you meet artists? And are they happy to meet you, or
and especially something like that. Yeah. We were very fortunate that we had a mutual friend who was an animal carer, and it was just luck that we were both invited to the same dinner party that was held at her house. And I guess it was also luck that I had a couple of pieces of work with me. I felt very self-conscious of myself because I knew how many artists used to go to Bill and try and show him his work. But when he saw my work, he gave me a couple of tips right there and then. And even now I use them. So that was the start of knowing Bill, but I still felt very almost like he was not to be disturbed.
Yeah.
And even, can you believe, even David Attenborough said in his video, because he did a video with Bill at his house, that was the feeling he got. This man is busy and he's not to be disturbed. He actually lived on over 100 acres of rainforest, and it was a beautiful house, but very secluded, and you really respect a man's privacy. So I was torn between, can I come round again, to I've got to figure this out myself. But that's how we initially met.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Run me through that process of collecting the reference.
Sure. I guess I'm very fortunate that I have my wife, my partner, who is as into wildlife as I am, and we always go out as a pair. We very seldom go singly. I just go to the dangerous bits on my own, like the tops of mountains covered in snow and stuff like that.
Do you feel that, like, if you was to experience a bit of wildlife without her, it'd be terrible?
First thing I think of, wish Sharon was here.
Yeah.
I wish she could see this.
That's why I always take Jen with me.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, when we go out, and what I love too is my wife's equally as keen as I am as that second pair of eyes to go, hey, did you see that? And I can definitely thank my wife for so much footage that I've got of the eagle I didn't see on the left-hand side, because she was sitting outside of the car. So we'll go out for a day, and I guess just recently we went up to Pine Lake to get all the footage for this devil painting. And we, not only am I getting my shots and my video, but for me it's more of habitat for the animal, things that I can use to put into a painting. My wife's getting more of the really sort of nice landscape shots, or a nice moment in light. I'm too busy down here, and she'll see, the snow-covered mountain. I did do a trip off of Madagascar a couple of years ago, and this is where I went to a place where they're recreating a habitat that's been basically extinct for over 100 years, including these giant land tortoises. I can honestly say I'm never going anywhere in this world without my wife again. Because my biggest regret is that she didn't experience sitting next to one of these giant land tortoises, because it was a unique experience. So yeah, note to self, always bring wife.
So is she handy sort of at the end of the process too, when you've done the painting, and that's what it was like? Or
it's so great to have a second opinion.
Especially someone who's experienced the same thing.
Yeah. My wife used to be a graphic artist.
Right.
She used to do screen painting. She used to actually design t-shirts.
Yeah.
Back in her early days. And she's retained that eye.
Oh, great.
So, and Bill, you can paint yourself into something that you think looks good, or you can try and tell yourself, meanwhile there's an underlying current saying it doesn't look any good.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have that person come in and give you an honest, and sometimes that's hard to take, that honest opinion of, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
But I feel that's the way you should always have an open mind.
Yeah.
Because I feel with an open mind you'll always keep learning.
Yeah.
And if you keep learning, hopefully you'll keep improving your paintings. So yeah, having my wife come in for a second opinion, it's fantastic.
Okay, so it looks like we're looking at a lot of reference stuff here.
It is, Bill. This is all from a painting of yellowtail black cockatoos that I've recently finished. And I just want to show you this is all the stuff that people don't see at the end of a finished painting. As you can see here, usually 9 times out of 10 when you're taking still photos of birds, the thing that is the most confusing is the way the feet go. So here I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to get the feet in all different angles. So what I find is when you first draw the feet, you don't really know what you're on about. And you sort of think you've nailed it. But then once you start to draw the feet 3 and 4, 5, 6, however many times it is, you start to know the little things to look for. And then when you get it to the point, what I usually do is if I do all this reference drawing, 3 or 4 hours later, I'll just grab a sketch pad and just draw a foot. And if I can get a pretty good foot out, then I know that I'm absorbing the information and I'm absorbing the way the foot is made up. So this is the reason for all of this. Here, as you can see, the bird, I've got the bird from a pose. That was from a photograph, but the bird wasn't calling, it was actually feeding. I've done all my reference and just saw how the bird, because I wanted the bird calling in the painting. And doing these sort of branches from life, this gives me a chance to then put the bird in a believable position by putting it onto tracing paper. You can see here we can move it up and down the branch. We know that this bird is actually sitting on a branch. You can't see his other foot, so he's sitting side onto the branch. So I'd probably go for something like that. And like I say, putting them onto tracing paper like this and cutting it out gives you that freedom just to try different positions of the bird on the branch. That way too, if you've got a branch from Tasmania and a bird from Tasmania, whoever's looking at the painting will be able to relate to, and it's so interesting when I do these paintings of yellowtail blacks, how many people go, oh, I saw them, and then you get a story about yellowtail blacks, because suddenly this has just sparked a bit of a memory, and they relate to it because that's what they've seen in nature. And I guess that's what it is. It's reflecting moments in nature that people can relate to, I suppose.
It's sort of interesting. It's like you're a wildlife artist, but also you're a botanical artist and you're a landscape artist. You throw all those things in all together, you know. Some people are happy with that and some people are happy with landscape, but you want to throw all three in the mix. I
think the reason why I go like the way I do, I've found that with a bird, you can just do the bird and that's great. But that's only telling a very small part of the bird's life. Whereas if you do the bird on, like I did these guys amongst pine cones,
yes.
Feeding on a pine cone.
I love ripping them apart.
That tells the viewer so much more. And once again, a lot of people that have purchased the work have got this story that they want to share with you. And you know, and because I put, you know, some nice hills in the background that maybe part of Tasmania they know or they can relate to, and then the pine cones. Everybody hears yellowtail blacks, as you say, and it's telling so much more than just that's a bird.
So you've got a bit of bird here.
Yeah, just a bit of bird. The reason why I got this skin is, as you can see, I'm doing this from a reference photograph. It's a large photograph with a little bit of bird, and that doesn't get you the fine detail or even the texture because it's so small. Whereas with the pelt, if you move this around in the light, you can see little subtle hints of iridescence that you won't see in this. And this is why it's great to have a pelt or a skin to work with, because you can take it out into the light and place it how you want it to reflect the light, how you want it to be. And then you can translate that through into your work, like I've done here. Just that little subtle bit of iridescence.
Yeah, beautiful.
And as you can see, just if you move that around, you can see that picked up. And you see what I mean? If you just work from one photograph, there's so much that you miss out on. And even this photograph, I was a bit worried about how I was going to paint this, so I'll do just a mock-up painting here, and this is more problem solving because what I realised here was I had to do a glaze. This didn't get the iridescence that I wanted in the painting, and you can see it's a little bit dull, whereas on the painting I used glazes of cad yellow, and you can see the iridescence or the luminosity in the yellow really came out there. So it's all about, once again, corrections and just working up to a standard that you feel is acceptable to the rest of the painting. So the ears on the bird, as an adult bird, this beautiful skin around the eye, that all creates a lot more interest. And then having the berry in the mouth, that correlates to all the other berries around here. It just gels everything together, basically.
So Rob, what I want to talk about is the design process, like, you know, from the idea to doing the paintings. So how does it all start?
Well, I've always got 100,000 ideas floating around in my mind, and instead of just keeping them in my mind, I try and get them down as a rough sketch. And just getting something like this, that's the concept, I suppose, that I had in my mind. Also too, from other artists that I admire, I see some similar work that helps, I guess, evolve the concept. This is a good example of Robert Bateman. He's a Canadian wildlife artist, and I just love that snow, that feel of cold, I suppose. So with that in mind, I'll go to wildlife parks with the devils and get some footage that I feel is appropriate. I was lucky enough to get this footage, and I use a camera or a video camera because they're moving, and if I start sketching from a still pose and I can't see what's going on, I can move it one way or another and get more information. I was happy with this pose, so I stilled that, printed it out, but as you can see, there's no feet whatsoever. So what I'll do is develop drawings up of the feet.
These ones here, yeah?
Yeah, and just get to know what's going on, even the bone structure underneath, so you can see sort of what's going on. And then with tracing paper, and the reason I use tracing paper is you can rub it out nice and easily. If there's a branch you want to put behind it, you can put another piece of tracing paper, and you can just get your composition right. And I guess this is a good example. I used tracing paper underneath because I drew these from life, and just getting your composition planned out. And like I say, it's very good because it's just so easy to rub out. As you can see, getting those feet out for the devil, was quite happy with that. I was fortunate that the light was in the right direction here. This is another thing with tracing paper. I love it because you can change the light. You can imagine if the light was coming from here, or this would be in shadow, or it'd be throwing shadow if the light was over. All that I can do on tracing paper, but I was happy with that. So then the next thing was to enlarge it up, and you can see this is what I've done here. And now that I've got that concept starting to come alive, a big piece of tracing paper here, and putting the devil underneath it.
So this large piece is the size of your canvas?
Yes,
right? Yep.
That's it. I've drawn it out so it's that same size. Putting the devil underneath here, as you can see, that's the way we went. And then just very loosely, from photos that I took of the area up in the snow that I wanted the devil to be in, I've very loosely done a nice plan. And what that does, it gives me a really good starting point to then transfer onto the canvas. And this will all be line work, and I'll use carbon paper. When I get the canvas, I'll lay this over the top of the canvas and use carbon paper underneath, and then just draw all this line work in. And like I say, that's then we're ready to paint. So that's pretty much how the concept comes together.
Right. So it's gone from an idea, a design,
That's it.
to a well mapped out plan.
Yeah, it's about planning.
It's all about planning. Yeah.
It is. I feel, someone said to me once, you know, if you're going to build a house, you may as well build good foundations to build it on. This is how I feel with my paintings anyway. The more research I do in the beginning, the more successful the end painting will be. And there's no hiccups on the way. Saying that, sometimes I do rush ahead, and it always makes me realise I really should plan a bit more.
So this goes on there?
That's it. Let's sit up there. And you can see pretty much planned for that painting.
Right.
And like I say, we'll take that on. I'm going to use carbon paper underneath and just draw all the lines on.
Carbon paper.
Yes.
Okay, right. Good old carbon paper, right?
Bit of that, mate.
Right, and that doesn't,
Yeah.
it's an oil paper.
What I would do though is obviously put the painting down on there. Yeah, do it up here.
Now this looks to me like you started with yellows,
I did.
the underpainting.
And the reason I do that is when you first start painting, bringing in the background, I wanted a mid-tone here. And if you've only got the white canvas, there's a tendency to mix your colours a little darker.
Mm-hmm.
A little lighter, because when you put it on, it always looks quite dark because it's next to white.
Yes.
Whereas if I tone the canvas, and with this I used a little bit of orange and black, that tone takes it off of white, and then you can gauge your tonal values a lot easier because you're not sitting as a background of white. So, like I say, I was trying to get a mid-tone right the way through here. The danger with the white canvas at the back of it, it would have been too dark. Whereas just taking it off of white, it's a lot easier just to get that mid-tone right the way through.
So this is what you're working on now. You're going to pop your little hair in here.
I've got to say, I'm actually going the other way. I used to pop every little hair out, and I used to use these rigger brushes.
Is that a liner or a...
Yeah, that's a rigger brush.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's a 0.
Yeah.
And I used to painstakingly go in and do every hair. That's all very well and good, and that does work, and sometimes to finish off the work you can do that, but it takes a lot of time, and I found it actually makes the work look overworked. With oils, if you're going to view them 8 to 10 feet, you can get away with a bit. So what I've been doing, in the way that I got this sort of effect, was actually come in with something like this, a 1. Put down the black first of all.
That's just a round.
Yeah. And then just come in with a little bit of white into this burnt umber ultramarine, and a lot of white actually. And just do this. And because you're hitting it with a few bristles, you're getting the effect of a lot of fur. With a very short amount of work, or little work, you're getting this look of a lot of fur. And then what you can do is, once that's dry, that rigger that I showed you before, you can just come along, because you know all these guys got all these whisker beds coming out. You can then carry that on from there. But initially, and you're working what they call wet into wet. And what I love about that is that it's picking up that colour underneath, and it's dulling that camera. Sometimes if you do it dry over the brown here, it can get too much tone. The contrast is too much, and it just starts to look overworked and more white than the colour in shadow. In sunlight. So yeah, it's a bit of work, and it doesn't always work. But I guess that's the nature of painting. It's so true. It's 100,000 corrections.
Yeah. So you've got wildlife in here.
the working swallows, they come back every year in the 3 years we've been here.
Yeah.
And they're a fantastic thing to have. We've just got to be careful because when they nest, directly below the nest, it does get a little messy. But we've got ways around that to fix that. What I will say, we've only had this wall for the last year. When we first bought this place, there was actually a gap of nearly 1/2 foot, and the wildlife was just coming in and out. And I was painting yellow-throated honeyeaters, and while I was painting the yellow-throated honeyeater, one came in and grabbed a hold of a butterfly and attacked it on the ground while I was painting. So it was the best reference, but very cold in here during winter. So that's why we've had to do this.
Cool. Promotion and marketing.
Sure. I found in North Queensland, where I'm originally from, the promotion was more, it was almost luck than anything. Once again, being in the right place at the right time with the right people in front of you. And as a result, I was very fortunate to lecture about my artwork through several zoos in America. I was also very fortunate to go to Papua New Guinea 3 times. And it was all in relation with the tree kangaroo conservation program that was based in Rhode Island. Very fortunate time in my life, a very rewarding time in my life. Since I've been down here in Tasmania, I found the best way to promote myself is to actually get out into the public's eye. I've been resident artist at Esclede a couple of times. I always find I get work from getting out there. And also being given a chance to do a talk at the Queen Victoria Museum. That was a really great chance to show people what we're seeing here today, not just that finished painting.
Yeah.
People don't understand the amount of work that goes into it, the countless hours that people don't see. And giving a talk about what I do was, well, it was quite interesting for me, because I realised I started to understand all the things I do when I had to actually tell someone about it.
Yeah.
And I guess the really great thing is how well it was received, because we were fully booked, and then we had another talk because it was like a 60-person wait list. So that told me that people are interested in this.
Good.
So yeah, I want to try now just keep getting out into the public's eye. Some of the work that you've seen here is for a future planned exhibition. So I've realised none of my work's going to sell sitting in this shed.
Yeah.
And doing this sort of promotional stuff, that's what's going to sell my work.
So when you sort of say it's luck, but you're sort of also saying that you knew these animal people who introduced you. So obviously you love animals, and so you love animal people, so that's probably what's happening, so sort of networking.
The network of the similar minded people.
Because I sort of say, hey, I know this guy who does this, and oh wow, you know.
That's it.
So that's how it happens, you get out and meet these people.
Yeah, yeah.
And it comes out of passion what you do.
Yeah.
You love animals, so you seek that out. Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, the way I met a lady called Margaret Sinelli. She actually has a bed and breakfast up on the Atherton Tablelands, and I was based down in Cairns. Atherton's up on the up above Cairns, and I found out that she was an animal carer of all the native wildlife, and I did a lot of spotlighting after dark for the nocturnal wildlife, and I found out that she looked after this wildlife. So I very boldly got her name out of the phone book and gave her a call. Yeah. And she was very accommodating, and I'll never forget it because she said we could come up for a coffee. And the first time I met her, I thought to myself, wow, she's pregnant. And I didn't know later, 3 hours later, she actually brought a baby tree kangaroo out and said, is this what you wanted to see? So from that moment, that relationship started, and being that animal carer and me going into the forest so much, it was very easy for us to form quite a great friendship. And these people like Bill Cooper were the sort of people that she knew too. So once again, just that first meeting. And it was, I'm so thankful for that time in my life, because it sort of shaped me for, I guess, who I am today.
I guess that's the thing about networking. You sort of think, oh, how do you be a big artist? Oh, I've got to go see a gallery. But sometimes you just have to see a wildlife carer who's going to introduce you to somebody else and introduce you to somebody else.
And I think that's the other thing I love about what I do, is having those experiences with either a native wildlife or exotic wildlife, having those experiences because you can draw and paint animals. The added bonus is that you get to spend an afternoon with young wombats tearing up your lattice roof. I love that because that's what makes me tick.
So what happened here?
So this is a giant land tortoise trying to eat my sketchbook when I was in the island of Rodrigues.